At the moment, I'm more focused on the contribution that I can make by helping create the economic opportunities. I think that's one goal that I'm really passionate about, which is trying to create 200 jobs in Nepal.
What are the tips or any advice you want to give them?
Well, I mean, the first thing is literally acknowledging all the great work you've done, which is, I'm sure everyone has done something remarkable. The second thing is just what I have found most useful is just figuring out what I want to do first. And then once I know that, then all these other noise, I just block out. That's probably the two things that helps. Recently, I was in Nepal and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of the Nepali students from Nepal itself. Right now, just trying to explore ways on how I can contribute back to the community and the country from an economic point of view by creating economic opportunities. So I think that kind of gives a pretty broad spectrum of where I started, the ups and downs to things that I'm very passionate about.
Pjay, thank you so much for your time. It's so nice to have you finally in my studio.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Didi, for the inviting me along with PRADEEP Dai as well. Really appreciate it. I'm quite excited about the show because a lot of people have been talking about it, and especially in Nepal and Australia. So I think it'd be such a exciting opportunity to share a bit more about my journey.
Of course.
I also want to acknowledge your work in terms of doing the podcast. One of the things that comes out from the podcast is things that a lot of the new students need to hear about, whether it's the working right, mental issues, but also just people that have stayed in Australia and thinking about, okay, well, how do we expand our property portfolio to key basic things in life? And I think this is almost like your go-to resources for a lot of the Nepalis in Australia. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. When I first started PJ, my podcast journey, I was like, what I'm going to do? Because we have lots of Nepali and I wanted to stick around within our community so that we can share our journey and at least one person will get inspired from that journey. Okay, if SAJANA can do it or even PJ can do it, I can do it. So let's share the journey. So that's how it started. But then now people are appreciating our work and they are enjoying and they're like, hey, we need this kind of content. Can you please work on this? For example, calling out this Rani Didi, she's doing really well. I don't know whether you know her or not. She's a wellness coach. She came here and did her journey share with us and it went really well. So again, I'm hoping from today's podcast, we're going to get really good information to share with everyone.
Yep, sounds good, Didi.
Yeah, sure. So PJ, let's start with you. Who are you?
Well, I mean, I think that's a very broad question. I mean, what I can say is I initially arrived in Australia back in the 1999. And through that journey, I've had a lot of ups and downs, whether it was integrating into the Australian society, whether it was like, basic things like how to get a job to how to study properly. I think, one of the misconceptions that I've realized, especially in my university journey, was that I always felt like I wasn't the top A student. But then after getting some coaching around how do you remember things quicker, how do you, have the strategies to pass exams, just those basic things actually allowed me to go from a lot of passes to high distinctions. And I think those things have integrated into a lot of things that I've started where I've failed, but also learned from them and tried to find people like similar to a mentorship where they can guide me towards that. At the moment, there's probably some key things that I am quite passionate about. One is just, uplifting our community, which is so critical. As I was sharing with you, Didi, earlier on, is that one of the things I experienced during my university years was that when I had the opportunity to meet a lot of the international students from Nepal, they were very bright, very smart, very hardworking. And, when you speak with a lot of the Australians, they also share those insights is the fact that they love, having Nepali workers or employees. But one of the things that I realized was that there's probably a couple of cultural nuances that they never had the opportunity to learn from, whether it's like, how do you apply for a job? It sounds so basic, but literally just getting your resume right, it makes the biggest difference in the world from either getting a job to not even being interviewed. So I think those things have really been something that I felt I would love the opportunity to support in, and I've done that through leadership forums, hosting ACU's first Nepali leadership forum, where we had a lot of the leaders come to the event and share their insights. But even, recently I was in Nepal and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of the Nepali students from Nepal itself. And right now, just trying to explore ways on how I can contribute back to the community and the country from an economic point of view by creating economic opportunities. So I think that kind of gives a pretty broad spectrum of
Who you are.
where I started, the ups and downs, to things that I'm very passionate about, which is giving
Sure.
back.
How young you were when you first came here?
Yeah, so
1992.
I think I was probably 6 years old.
Oh, okay. Sure, sure. With mom and dad, they
Yes,
migrated to
yeah,
Australia?
that's correct, yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. I'm pretty sure you're too young to even remember now how were the first years. But then, as you just said, when you went to uni, you really saw that some of the very bright students, but there was some kind of lack, even how to make your resume stronger, how to present yourself during the interview. Do you think that's the case still in our Nepali community or Nepalese students who are here?
Well, it's interesting you bring this up, and one of the things that I had the fortune of also engaging is the Chinese community, but also some of the other international communities like the Indian and some of the Southeast Asian. I think that this is not a Nepal issue, but
Okay.
more of an international student, especially from Southeast Asia. And when you look at the nuances, I think it's because in a lot of the countries in Southeast Asia, the reality is, they don't traditionally have had to apply through a resume. A lot of it is just through, your family. Which is
Correct.
hire my son or daughter. That's just the general theme
Correct.
of it.
Or you
Whereas-
belong to
yeah.
any political party
Yes,
in
well,
Nepal,
yeah,
it goes by high recommendation.
Yes, yeah.
Correct.
Well, I think that makes the biggest difference. And in Australia, yes, there is an element of networking, which is obviously very important. But also, the reality is, the first stage of the whole interview stage or the job application stage is the resume. And the nuances is that in today's world, a lot of the companies are using technology to filter out a lot of the resume. So what they do is they leverage things around AI to go, okay, well, this is a job description. How much of the resume matches
Oh,
the job
is it even
description?
a thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Oh,
literally a thing.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why you want to make sure that you invest a bit of time in actually getting the resume tailored to the job description, because it bumps up your profile to go, this is a candidate that's the best fit,
Oh,
and that's how you
wow.
get to the next stage. There is things around bias as well. I mean, it's just unfortunate, but there's been a lot of study. I think even in Australia, they just study around how your name impacts the.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that. I've heard
Yeah.
that.
So I think a lot of companies are trying to reduce the bias, but at the very minimum, if you can just tailor your resume towards a job description, that's going to bump up your profile a lot.
So should we change our name in our resume? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think there's things you can control. There's things you can't. I think with the name, you obviously can't control the name.
Correct.
But you can. What you can control is tailoring the resume towards a job description.
Yeah.
The second thing is, when you look at a lot of the data that just come out, a lot of the jobs don't get advertised. I think probably 60% of the jobs don't actually get advertised. I mean, the reality is, for a business, it costs money to advertise.
100%.
And if you've already got the resume of they know someone that's looking, then they often try to go through that way just so that it saves the company money. And that's why I highly recommend, if you're in the professional service industry, or even if you're in industries like nursing, trying to meet as much people in the industry does definitely help out, letting them know, hey, I'm looking for a job, I'm very committed, all the basic things that a lot of people would be looking for from an employee, which is hardworking, proactive approach. And I think those things definitely help people get, the ideal jobs that they're looking for.
I'm pretty sure, PJ, when you started your career as accountant or whatever job you
Yes.
did, how did you, besides the resume, how did you prepare yourself as a person for that particular interview? What are the things?
Well, I mean, and I guess this goes back into the focus on the future versus the past. Because when I first got my job as an assistant accountant, the reality was that I think, based on what I could recall right now, is out of the 8 units, I failed 4 of them. So the chances of me getting a job was very unlikely.
Oh
Plus, I was
God.
a
Uh-huh.
first year student, which in the accounting space, as you know, because Dai works in the accounting space, is that to get a job, it's very hard. They always look for
Very
experience.
competitive.
But when I reflect on it, I think what I did right was that I kept meeting a lot of people. I kept sharing the story of how I believed that the accounting space can make a real difference to people's lives through helping people understand their financials, to helping people, in foreign countries around the non-for-profit side of things, where I could be in a accounting financial role where we can contribute in that sense. At the very minimum, in my belief at that time, was that if I become a strong tax agent, a strong accountant,
Yep.
I can help people make good financial decisions. And I kept sharing that with a lot of people. And it just happened that with one of the person, they felt quite inspired by that story. So they recommended me to one of their managing director. And then through that, I got a job as an assistant accountant working at Fox Studios, where I think we had clients like Hugh Jackman and a lot of these
Oh
celebrities. So I
wow.
was very lucky. And I think what Australia allows a lot of people to do is that, yes, there is things around the academics, but it's also about your work ethic. It's about, how you're willing to improve, and it's you as a person as well. I think that those are things that I feel a lot of employers also look for.
Wow, big deal. Because when you are starting first job, you're like, oh my God, how I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna prove myself.
Yes. Yep.
But then I think you kind of been lucky as well, because in
Yep.
the very first project, you got to,
Yes.
work such a big industry. Um, and PJ, I'm sure you have met so many Australian, like native people, plus other multicultural people, because you do a lot of involvement in politics as well. How do you find Nepalese youngster or youths, especially in Australia, because we are here? How do you find them? What's their intention, or do you think they are really motivated towards the right channel? What do you think in general?
Well, I mean, I think this is a consistent theme across the Southeast Asia countries. And the only reason I mentioned Southeast Asia, plus also like the Asian countries, is that that's the community that I've been quite involved with recently. But the common trend across the Asian countries is that they're all hardworking, they're all looking to get ahead. And one of the things that I'm quite inspired by is also like they're very resilient, which is like they've, when you look at a global perspective, the reality is a lot of the international students in general have come to a new country.
Yep.
They've tried to, figure out how to get a job, how to settle in, how to study. Like for an everyday Australian, it's very hard to balance work and study. Plus, we don't have the burden of paying all the fees up front. A lot
Correct.
of the local students have had the privilege of having the government support around that. So I personally feel quite inspired. Um, I wish there was more platforms where the international students in general could get the opportunity to learn the cultural nuance, have the opportunity to
Yep.
meet with more locals, because I think that's been one of the consistent themes is that there hasn't been much opportunity to integrate with the local community.
Correct.
And I think that's something I wish, there was more platforms around.
And also coming from not only Nepal, the Asian background, we have so many cultural
Yep.
differences in terms of how the finance system works
Yes.
here, even education system. Same with, I come from medical background. Even the medical background, it's a huge difference. And then you kind of go through that cultural shock when you first
Yes.
come here,
Yep.
and that takes a big toll on you, which I've been part of that journey
Yes.
as
Yeah.
well. So what can we do as a people who are already been in Australia, or people like you and us, um, who has gone through the journey? What can we do to minimize that gap? Is there we can play our role, or because you've been in political line as well, what do you think we could have, or Australian government could have done better to minimize that gap?
Well, what I fundamentally believe in is that ultimately, we as individuals should focus on what we can control, because there's a lot of things we can't control, and they often lead to unpredictable results.
Correct.
But in terms of what we can control, I mean, things like yourself, Didi, where you've create this platform where it gives a lot of people the opportunity to share their stories, but in turn also for the listeners to feel inspired by new things that they never had thought about. You know, you shared a couple of examples around different stories, and I was like, hey, that's interesting. I think you shared about the wellness coach, but also in your past interview, you shared about the focus on employer rights, but also things around property investment to multiple factors with what the Nepali community is doing. And what I fundamentally believe is that everyone has a different role to play. You know, I think if everyone tries to be the leader, then
Yeah, yeah,
it doesn't
correct.
work. But it also doesn't bring happiness because everyone has a different forte on what they're strong at, what they're passionate about. And from experience, when you do something you're passionate about, it feels like it's a game or it's something that you're doing as fun versus, you know, counting down the hours on when you
Yeah.
finish it. So at the very minimum, if people can share their stories about what they're doing, if they meet some Nepali youths offering to lend a hand around, you know, sharing insights on how they've been able to get to where they are.
Correct.
You know, what I strongly believe is that I think you can't, you know, literally support everyone because it has to come from a two-way side, which
Yeah.
is that you can do your best to support someone, but the other person also has to put their part.
Correct.
An example is, you know, you can't, the students or the international student community can't have expectation that someone's going to get them the job and do everything for them.
No.
Like it's got to be, you know, them putting the effort to make sure they're prepared for the interview, doing things around doing a good job so they get promoted. So I think fundamentally it has to be a two-way thing, and everyone, at least at the very minimum, can offer their support around what they've learned. It's something that doesn't cost anything. It's something that doesn't take too much of their time. So I think that those are things that people
Yeah,
can
and
support with.
also, I know you don't really support going overseas and having all your life, young time, the most productive time to spend in overseas because you have gone back to Nepal, where we're going to come back later, and trying to create a job opportunity for young in Nepal. But then, if you have to go to overseas, have a preparedness. Try to prepare yourself, like what will be the differences, rather than being only Nepal and hey, this is how it's system going to work. We need to prepare ourselves before we jump in. Because in my recent podcast, that's the issue one of Didi raised. Because we come to Australia at such a young age, like 1920s. And then in Nepali culture, mom and dad, they don't even let their, kids to work.
Yeah.
You are aware of
Yeah.
Nepali
Yeah.
culture,
Yes.
they're like really pampered. All they need to do is study, and that's it. But all of a sudden, you come here where you
Yep.
need to do your study, you need to pay the rent, you need to pay everything like fooding, lodging, train, tickets, everything. And plus, you are far from your parents. There's not your mom who's going to cook dinner or lunch for you. So I think this kind of thing and making ready and have that insight how I'm going to juggle around when I actually go through, that helps
Yeah.
as well,
Well,
isn't it?
I want to put a nuance, which is I do believe it's very important to travel, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and you know, if anyone's thinking of coming to Australia to study or anywhere, I think that's also very important because when you go to a new country, you do learn a lot. Um, I guess what will be also very important in the young years is to try to do your best to think about what you're strong at, I think, and where you think you can add value. The reason I say that is that during your younger years, like the reality is there is going to be a lot of societal pressure, family, society on what you should be doing, but everyone has a different journey, and I think that's quite important because you know, in Nepal, there are people that are doing very well in specific industries who have stayed there. But what is the key is that if you kind of just follow what the society has said, the impact of that is that you may be spending so much of your years studying, doing things,
Yeah.
and then realizing, okay, I can't do this anymore. I want to do what I really loved, and you just wasted a lot of that time. So I guess that's probably something that I would like to bring to people's attention. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So, PJ, your recent project back in Nepal, let's talk about that. I was going through and I could not find much details, but I knew you spent a lot of time there past 1 year or
Year
so.
2 years, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in 2 years. So, what are you doing? What you cooking
Well,
there?
yeah, dude, thanks for asking. I mean, when I initially thought about going to Nepal, the key thing was at the consultancy that I was working for.
Uh huh.
I guess part of the job was I could work anywhere. in the
Okay.
world. And because we recently had a baby daughter, Lily, we thought, okay, well, we'll go to Nepal, we'll try it out. A lot of people cautioned me that I'm not gonna stay there too long because it's
Hey,
very
can
hard
I
for
be
yeah.
honest, PJ? When I first hear that you are going from Pradeep, and I'm like, because I'm one of the person who was really frustrated with the
Yes.
system in Nepal. I've done my master's in sociology
Oh
from
wow.
Nepal. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's
Yeah, but then I still thought, oh no, this is not the place for me. So
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, PJ, why? And especially with the little Lily, she's so
Yes. Yes.
adorable.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you.
like, why you wanna go back? Are you sure you really wanna do it?
Yeah.
But then of course, Pradeep said, no, no, no. He has a vision. He's not going just for going. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
he's thinking. I was um a bit stressed, or even
Okay.
like how you gonna cope, because you
Yeah. You
came
will.
here in such a young age.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
haven't seen actually how Nepali
Yeah.
society works,
I haven't.
even day-to-day life,
Yes. Yeah.
like literally going to the bank and even getting the money from your
Yeah.
account. It's like trouble in
Oh
Nepal,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm
So much
like,
frustration.
no,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
no, PJ is gonna come back in within a month, I can tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But wow, hats off to you,
Yes.
because you did stay there for quite a long
Yeah.
time and you actually started. So
Yes.
what are you doing in Nepal? How it's gonna help any Nepalese youths, or what's your vision?
Yeah, I mean, initially the plan was similar to your statement.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people didn't think that I was gonna last, which is a fair understanding. The reality is I've grown up in a place with lot of systems, a lot of protocols, a safe society. Whereas I think in Nepal, the reality is, there's a lot of gray areas. Things take a lot of time, a lot of bureaucratic process, a lot of red tape. And there's not much of a system in the sense that, like in Australia, basic things like the traffic laws. I think
Correct.
in Nepal, like I do fear for a lot of the riders because they often overtake. But when I went to Nepal, I really enjoyed it. That was the most important thing. The second thing was when I spoke with a lot of the youths. One of the things that came quite apparent was that a lot of youths did want to stay in Nepal.
Oh wow.
I think deep down they all want to stay, but then, the reality is a lot of families and a lot of people do have to go, okay, well, how can I make the most out of my life? Which is an important question. And I think for a lot of people, they do believe that if they go overseas, that's where they can make the biggest impact, both for their family and themselves. Um, and one of the things that came up a lot was that there's just not enough opportunities.
Yeah.
And then, it just happened that I had friends that wanted to do a couple of businesses, whether it was either outsourcing in Nepal, but also things around actually creating companies in Nepal. And I
Okay.
thought, okay, well, that's actually quite interesting. Um, like, how can I make the biggest impact in Nepal? And I thought about a couple of things. Normally, for a lot of people, it is the charity work, which is trying to raise funds from Australia and overseas and contribute to schools. But I think ultimately, one of the things that Australia has been great at is for allowing people to work hard and earn their living. I think that's something a lot of people feel empowered by. So through that, we had an aim of, okay, well, let's create as much jobs as possible in Nepal. At the initial stages, there wasn't a strong figure, but as I got a couple of more clients, and that built up a bit of my confidence. Then it allowed me to go, okay, well, let's try and hit the target. By the end of 2024, we achieve at least 200
Oh wow.
jobs for Nepal, whether it's through outsourcing or through international companies coming to Nepal. So I think I've been lucky to have friends that have supported me in that journey. The reality is, I guess, coming to a new country and trying to do business often is very challenging, especially with the murkiness of the laws in Nepal. But
Yep.
I feel glad that at least, at this stage, through us and our clients, we've been able to achieve at least 50 jobs in Nepal.
Oh wow.
Where since I came to Nepal to now, we were able to create 50 jobs that wouldn't have been created. So I think that's something that we all Nepalis can also try and support, which is rather than the donation, how
Yeah.
can we actually build a ecosystem in Nepal that allows people to work, that allows business to thrive. I think that's very important in any economy, and I think if we can support that, then that's.
Yeah, great, great. And do you have a plan to continue this?
Yeah, it's still operating. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
still
yeah.
operating. Yeah.
Oh, great, great. Wow. That's a big step because I don't know, when you said that people has deep down mindset that they don't want to go to overseas, but what I have seen from youth's perspective is they don't want to stay in Nepal. They want to go somewhere, doesn't matter, maybe Australia, Canada, America, or whatever ways. And especially the place I come from is Dang, which is a bit far from Kathmandu, I think 400 kilometers or so. And then around that district, there are few places where people going America, but
Yeah.
they go by a different route. Like they
Okay.
said, walking route. I don't
Yeah.
understand how it works, but they are going and paying a big amount of
Mm.
money. Not very educated people,
Yeah.
but then they have that kind of source where they
Yeah.
are going. And then all I can see is like almost like the young generation is leaving Nepal.
Well, I mean, you make an interesting point, Didi, which is like they're so frustrated by the system that they're leaving. So
Correct.
if you look at the system and go, okay, well, if the system was improved, where there was economic opportunities, where there was structures, where there was growth, I think people would have a different mindset to that.
Yeah, they
But
will
the
have.
reality is, because of the current scenario that you've shared, I
Yeah,
think that's the key driver. But
yeah,
if we can, try and change that, then I think people's minds would also shift.
yeah. I just want to know your intention, or how did you had that even plan or thought in your brain when everyone is trying to go overseas, everyone wants to go overseas and want to do something,
Yeah.
whether it's financially making the family strong or having a great future career in overseas. And then you did just opposite. No, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go back Nepal and I'm gonna do something. I'm like, do you really thought it's gonna be that easy, or you just made that decision and hey, no, I'm gonna
Well,
try?
yeah, I mean, I think what I was blessed by is that it wasn't just me going to Nepal
Uh-huh.
and trying to start a business. I mean, the reality is I did still have my corporate role that was
You were
paying
still working.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I still had the corporate role that was paying me Australian dollars. So I guess it was almost like I was living in Nepal but still working for the Australian company. So
Uh-huh.
I guess there wasn't much impact on that front. I mean, I knew it was a big risk because the reality is, I guess, similar to the advice that you've shared and other people shared, is that doing business in Nepal is totally different to doing business in Australia. I think there's instances where people have been, jailed because just the way that the
The
environment
operation. Okay.
operates. I think, when I look at Nepal and the opportunity there, the reality is I think when I speak with a lot of the families in Australia, a lot of people do want to have a business in Nepal, so that when they come to Nepal, at least they're doing something, and
Okay.
they've got a reason to come back and come back as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it almost feels like, well, we can travel anywhere in the world. Why are we traveling to Nepal? But if they have a business or something there, then at least they still have that attachment. But the second thing is, when you look at the region, if you look at India, some of the other regions, they're growing rapidly.
Yeah.
So why can't Nepal as well? But when I did go to Nepal, the flip side that I realized was that there was a lot of failures in trying different ideas. But I guess with every failure, there's a lot of lessons you do learn,
Yeah.
as you've experienced, and I think a lot of people have experienced. I think ultimately for me, I still see Nepal as a space where I'm just there to contribute. I'm not really thinking at a commercial point of view. I
Uh-huh.
think it's very risky to see Nepal as a commercial opportunity at this stage. But what we can support Nepal with is things like helping corporates who are looking at outsourcing opportunities to be the connector, where we can support the Nepali youth to get a job, but also support the businesses in Australia.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the cost of hiring an employee in Australia it's continually increased. The cost of hiring has increased, but also the talent pool is it's still very limited. Whereas because of COVID, biggest thing that's come out is that people have realized they can work anywhere in the world. And I think, again, it goes back to that consulting role that I did have, because I guess part of that role was that I had the opportunity to hear a lot of the senior executives from large corporations share what is the biggest talent issue. And literally everyone did say that the biggest talent issue is particularly in tech. They can't find enough tech people to work for them, and that's a big impact on their growth. The second thing is that a lot of the corporates, if you look at them, they've become, especially since COVID, they've become a digital company.
Correct.
Which is they've implemented a lot of digital technologies, and whether they like it or not, like they can't operate without the digital technologies, but they can't also grow. And what they're saying is that universities aren't pumping out enough talent to support their needs, but they're also having to retrain a lot of people. The cost of retention has increased for tech talent. The cost of literally like everything has increased. And then ultimately I thought, okay, well, it sounds like there's a lot of talented people in Nepal, which I've always had that gut feeling, especially at university. If I can, and because I've been connected with all these corporates, and if I can connect these talented people
Wow.
to the corporates, then it's a win-win for them because they've got the talent, and in Nepal they can get the job as well. I think the contrast is like for a company, they're pretty much paying like for a mid-level software developer probably at least $13,000 per month, whereas they can hire someone from a country like
Overseas.
Nepal for like literally 4,000. And
Oh,
that's very good.
wow.
And like 4,000 in Nepal is obviously very good pay.
100%.
So it's a win-win for all parties.
And I think being you knowing so many people or in simple language to have that connection around you, it helped as well.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I think the more other peoples from Nepali community, I think we should start thinking in that way. How can we support back in Nepal? Still being in Australia, but then having that connection where we can still have a people outsource from Australia in any community, any industry. That's a really great point. I hope people will learn from you or even think, okay, hey, PG has started, why can't we do it? In a small side, we do as well. Like even from my podcasting, we have like 4 staff members back in Nepal and they're doing
That's
great.
amazing. Yeah.
So not even a great level, but then from a small level, if everyone will start thinking in that way, I hope it will help.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring this up, and you're definitely right. Like, even a small way, it can help the country because, like, simple things like marketing, which every single business needs.
Correct.
Like, I think in Australia, again, probably don't quote me on this, but I think an average salary, at least for a basic one, maybe like 7,000 per month. Whereas you can get someone very talented for like 1.5 to 2K.
Correct.
So
Easy.
yeah, save money there, for the company. Plus, we can help create the jobs in Nepal.
Yeah.
And literally, I'm sure anyone knows, everyone would know a business owner that's looking for a marketer. And I'm happy to be the middle person as well, where I
Correct.
can
Advise them. Ask them,
support them in
hey,
that front.
there's someone which I know who does this outsourcing
Yeah.
your any kind of business
Yeah.
need, not only finance, marketing, even the social media platform at the moment. How many Nepali business we have here?
Yeah.
So ask them,
Well,
hey,
100%, yeah.
yeah,
Because I think the average salary in Nepal is like literally probably $400. So like to go from 400 to even 1,000,
Yeah.
that's a big jump, and that allows people to spend more. That allows people to rethink the opportunities around where they want to spend their lives as well. So I think
I hope this will be the new concept, and it will even we start thinking and talking about it, and slowly it will become a trend, which the least we can do being in overseas.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's go back to your experience where you were in Nepal.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest challenge or what was the biggest shock you come across? And I'm like, oh my God, this is new for me. Was
Okay.
there anything?
Well, yeah, everything was very shocking to me.
Tell us, because we really want to know.
Yeah, I think for a second generation that's grown up in Australia, the first shock is just the way that business operates. Because
What did you find difference or what's the shock for you?
well, I think in Australia the reality is it's very digitally led. A lot of focus on having structures, governance, where there's real implications. Where if things aren't, clear, then people sort it out. Whereas I think in Nepal everything is very grey.
Yeah.
But also things like the working culture. I think in Nepal, generally, I'm just speaking in general sense,
Yeah.
is that people do end up starting late. They try to finish early. There's not a real strong focus. But again, based on general, is that I think in Australia it's very outcome driven, which is like this is a target you got to hit, and then we
Correct.
can review your pay and all these things. I think in Nepal it's not like that.
There's no such thing in
Yeah,
Nepal.
I think those are some of the key things. But also, I guess in like what I would love to do was allowed like maybe create a fund from Australia to support Nepal. But what I realized is that it's very the business operations is very risky in Nepal, whether it's the economics to the legal system to multiple things. I guess that's probably one of the things. And I think in Australia, the biggest difference is that there's just a lot of focus on figuring out how to grow the company. Whereas in Nepal, because it's a very close knit community, I think there's a strong focus on being sensitive with the relationships. Because I think in Australia, it's like it doesn't matter how close you are with the person. If someone's not delivering the results, then
Not performing
yeah,
well.
it's like very cutthroat.
Yeah,
Whereas in Nepal, there's a strong focus on balancing it out so that there is a positive relationship long term. I think that's something that's come up. Things around the items we shared, a lot of red tapes. I think we've had to visit the bank multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of hours just wasted on those things that
Yeah.
could have been enhanced. So I think those are some things is just the ways of working. And I think it's not a negative thing because the reality is every country has their journey of going through a digital process, reducing red tape. But I do appreciate the fact that Nepal has continued to improve. Like I think the slowness on the banking system to get things sorted has been much quicker. The governance is slowly becoming a bit more safer than previously. But also, like, I think the government is also like focusing a lot more on creating an ecosystem for foreign investors to come in. But I think there's always a risk because of the political instability that
Correct.
anything can happen. I think that's the biggest concern for a lot of people.
Sure. I I always see in you, PJ, you try to look at things positively. Like you always try to focus on positive part, which shows that you have different mindset than like me or any average Nepalese who has spent most of like young time in Nepal and then came here. The one thing as like Nepali youngster, I can say the difference between like Australian youngsters and Nepalese is the time. Like we don't really care in Nepal about the time, and here is time is kind of money.
Yes, it is.
Did you experience any in Nepal?
Yes, of course. Like I think that's just the reality is that there's just because I mean culturally it's never been that important. I think that's just the way it has never been. But it's slowly changing. I feel, which is as Nepal develops and its economy develops, I think more people are appreciating the focus on getting the time right, which is showing up to meetings right when they say they're going to deliver projects, making sure that the deliverables are important. Because if you want international investors to come to Nepal,
you need to.
They need the employees to also make sure all the deliverables are on time and like people do show up to meetings on time as well.
Yeah.
But I think you can't help it because I think the culture is that it's so laid back that
Correct.
because I think a lot of people have said this, which is that Nepal can overcome any challenge because they've continued to overcome multiple challenges, and regardless of how bad or good the economy is, people still eat. People still enjoy life. So, like in Australia, maybe you can feel the impact, which is if you're not making the money, then you have to worry about a lot of things. But in Nepal, like there's no worries.
You can still have, tummy full of food, and you will still have a roof to sleep. That's some kind of resilience, or that's something unique. I think Nepal shares. No matter what happens, you don't need to sleep in an empty tummy. Empty stomach.
Yeah, and one of my friends was. It's actually interesting you bring this up, Didi, because with a couple of my friends that have come to and visited Nepal, one of the things that they found remarkable was that there's no homelessness in Nepal.
Yeah.
Like at least at a public level,
Yes.
which is if you go to like a lot of the places, there's not people sleeping on the streets as much as you see in other countries.
Correct.
And yeah, very rare. Like I think one thing they say is that it's such a nice place. A lot of people are very respectful, and just the lack of homelessness that they would often see in other places. And I think
Yeah.
those are things that
And considering Nepal being like a very underdeveloped country or developing country, you expect more to see those scenario when you walk
Yes.
in the street compared to even United States or
Yeah.
even here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something positive thing
Yeah.
about Nepali community that we don't have that, which is very sad part of the other society. But
Yes.
yeah, oh, that's great. One more thing. So when you went to Nepal, like in first initial days, did you had any moment where you thought, "Oh my gosh, what I have done to myself? Why I came back here? How I'm gonna figure it out?" I know you're still
Yeah.
working for an international company like from Australia, and you're still getting paid, but then the mindset you had in your mind, this is how I'm gonna do. How
Yeah.
difficult or how easy it was first initial days?
Well, I mean, I think in the initial days, life was very good because, like, like literally, like you had delicious food, going out, enjoying life.
Yeah.
But where things really started to make me a bit more nervous was that because I promised myself when I'm 30, I'll have my own business. So when I did end up just the day before or the week before I turned 30, I officially resigned from my previous employer
Oh
to
wow!
start the
As a part of
business.
your plan,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
planned?
Well, yeah, I've always said like because
Oh, okay.
with my life, I always try to set goals, and sometimes it's unrealistic, but sometimes I do fail, but then eventually I do seem to achieve it.
Okay.
And at that time, like I did set a goal that okay, well by this age, I'm gonna have a business no matter what, and I thought, well, if I'm a man of my true words, then I
I
would
have to
follow
stick
through
with my
that.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, just things. I was lucky enough that I had a friendship group that are very supportive. Where I did, focus purely on the business, but in any business that we do start, as you know, Didi, is that business is one of the most uncertain professions in the
Yep.
world.
Yep.
It's probably one of the most underpaid professions in the
Yep.
early years. And because I guess the business was focused on Nepal itself, that's when I had to deal with a lot of the bureaucratic process. And that's when I realized, oh man, like, is this the right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
because it's not easy. Like, yes, at a high level, it may look easy, but whether it's trying to find the right people, making sure that people are achieving the key outcomes, but also managing the stakeholder for international clients
Correct.
because they've got a different expectation on
And they
what
have
good
their
looks
own
like.
standard
Yeah.
compared to Nepal, and then you kind of had to question yourself. Oh my God, if I'm gonna be able to provide the same quality
Yes.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that was the biggest yeah, challenge. That was the biggest challenge. I mean, we've
Sure.
overcome that, and I think we've built up new processes. But I guess that's probably the biggest challenge is that because Nepal has traditionally not been a very stable country from a political point of view.
Correct.
I guess we
100%.
never know what to expect next. And I think that's always, yeah, one of the biggest
Yeah,
concerns.
and constant changing in rules and regulation.
Yep.
I think that impacts a lot of people when they become a little bit hesitant to
Yep.
even invest in massive way because you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen after a year time or after this political
Yep.
changes. Yeah, but as you always see positive side, I think we all need to be a positive and things will change in
Yeah, yeah.
positive way, isn't
Yeah, yeah.
it? Yeah, great. Um, let's come back to Australia, PJ. When you were involved a little bit in political sector as well,
Yep, sure.
and which was a great thing for all of
Yep.
us. We are quite happy and proud that you did from Barton, right?
Yes, yep, that's
Yeah, as a
correct. Yeah.
federal Liberal
Yep.
candidate. How was the experience, and how did you go there? And what's your future plan in regards to that sector, political sector?
Yeah, I mean, the way I would see the political space is rather than like trying to get a specific position, it's more around like how can we influence key policies that will be important for us.
Sure.
When we look at the current government, I mean, there's been some differences that people have felt, whether it's the restriction on the migration, which
Yeah.
which is a big impact for a lot of the international community.
Yeah.
Whether there's been like I think new taxes that I've heard about. I'm not sure. You have to double check, but I think there was a focus on trying to reduce the car emission,
Yeah.
which ultimately, based on other markets, have increased the price of petrol cars, which a lot of people can't afford EVs. That's just the reality of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
To I think just the basic things, like how they handled the economy. Like a lot of people are feeling the focus on interest rate, and when we look at the prior government, the biggest difference that I really appreciated was the things around the JobKeeper.
Yeah.
Which was, unlike other countries where they just said you can't go out, you can't do work, and we're not supporting you.
Yeah.
I guess Australia had the policy where they did support businesses by trying to retain as much employees as possible. And I think that those things are things I'm passionate about, which is ensuring that there is good policy that I guess would be important for a lot of the community members. So for me, from a political perspective, I'll always be a key person that would be voicing concerns for the community
Yeah.
to ensure that, it's being heard with the right people.
Correct.
I think there's always things in the migration space that comes up a lot, but also just things around expanding the homes, which is, I think there's a huge rental crisis at the moment.
Correct.
And, there's a lot of international students are coming, and I think they get shocked because they're like, the cost of living is like crazy.
At the moment,
yeah.
it's been crazy, especially compared to even 5 years back and now,
Yeah.
PJ. Oh my God,
Yeah.
rent price has gone really high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big issue for the community because, I mean, some of them are still starting off in their professional journey where they're not ready to buy a home yet. But others that are coming to Australia, like if they get hit with, like, paying $600-700 in rent, like that's a lot of money that would impact them.
Sure.
So those are things that I've always been passionate about, and those are things that I'm quite keen and focused on continuing.
Yeah.
So I do regularly catch up with the key people in our party to ensure anything that's important that we do address that.
Yeah. As I mentioned before, being from Nepali community, we were really proud of you that time. Even like someone from our community is representing, and in such a young age. And I hope from that journey you have learned, and at least we have someone who can deliberate our opinion or our concern to the key people, as you said.
Yeah.
Because only one individual cannot change everything, but then at least having a right channel to raise the concern, that really helps. Do you have any plan to go back again that political space, or you want to take that break? What's the plan?
Well, it's not taking a break. What I would say is that at the moment, I'm more focused on the contribution that I can make by helping create the economic opportunities. I think that's one goal that I'm really passionate about, which is trying to create 200 jobs in Nepal. Mainly because when you go to any country, like I'm sure you feel this as well, which is if your country, your home country, which you were born in, or your ethnic background country, if the country's not doing well, then you also feel a bit like dismotivated.
100%, of course.
And when your country's doing very well, then you feel very motivated and very proud. And I guess ideally what I'd like to do is support the country by creating economic opportunities. I think the current Australian government has been doing a great job on that front. They recently had the Assistant Foreign Affairs Minister come to Nepal, then a parliamentary delegation. And then obviously with our current Nepal ambassador, he's been leading the charge on creating a more economic ties. And, as any Nepali Australian would feel, they would feel prouder, more stronger sentiment around having a stronger relationship between Australia and Nepal.
Correct.
So that's particularly an area that I'm quite passionate about as well. Because, the reality is I think based on the statistics, like nearly $3 billion is coming to Australia.
Yeah.
But there's not that back channel that's going back to the country as well. And I think
Yeah, yeah.
when I speak with a lot of the community members, they're all thinking about how can we support. And I think if they had a stronger bilateral connection, then that's something that a lot of people would feel quite proud of. And I think that's something that I've been echoing with the party leaders as well.
Yeah, great. No, that's really good to see. Like as we were talking before, that everyone is trying to go overseas and try to do something good for them, for their family, for their future career. Where you have thought, no, hey, let's do something together back for our country or back for our Nepali community, which is really commendable. And good luck. I
Yeah.
hope we can do it together.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and someone needs to start from somewhere. Um, I, even like that was the short time space where you have spent time with the political people
Yeah.
here in Australia,
Yeah.
and then when you gone back to Nepal 2
Yeah.
years ago, I'm pretty sure you had some interaction with the political leader from Nepal as well. Have you seen any differences or any similarities the way we the way Australian political leaders works or the Nepalese, or did you find any difference, or what's it something not working well
Well,
compared
I
to
mean,
here?
what I would say again, back to the point, is that Nepal is going through the early stages of the democratic process. So, like, when you look back, maybe 10, like maybe, yeah, 6, 7 years ago, a lot of people weren't aware, okay, what does that even mean? So
Yeah.
I think, before I heard people saying, if you're like an MP, people used to think you're the god because they
100%.
thought
It's
they
still
had
the same, I guess.
they had
Yeah.
like they thought they had all the power, but slowly
Yeah.
people are realizing what power does an MP have, what power does a prime minister have, and also what they're accountable for. I think that's why maybe we're seeing a bit of changes around people's appetite for leaders that are able to deliver results versus I think in the past where they were focused very on party affiliation.
100%. Always been
Yeah.
the case in Nepal.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest changes I'm seeing is that people are realizing, okay, well, what does a good MP need to do at a state level, at a federal level? What's the job of the minister? And so I think slowly I'm seeing a lot of change around people's voice to ensure that their parliamentarians are accountable. I think, when you look at Australia, like literally there was people that would lose their position because of strong focus on public accountability. So that's something that I'm seeing. So what I do feel is that, the reality is every government has the ups and downs. Every government has the political, what's it called? Changes,
Instability. Yeah.
instability.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reality is Nepal is still very early on in the journey. It's still progressing. I think that's the biggest indicator we should look at is the government progressing to ensure that there is a economic growth. And the reason I focus on a lot on the economic growth is that I think if the country is not economically strong, then the people within the country would obviously find it very challenging because if it's not economically strong, there won't be as much jobs, there won't be a lot of prosperity for people to grow their wealth, which ultimately impacts their day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I've been quite focused on is to ensure from an economic point of view that it is growing. In terms of the political leaders,
Did you met anyone? I'm pretty sure you have, but I just wanted to hear from you. Did you met any political leader which has been really in good position? And then how's the experience?
I think each leader, because we got to look at the backstory, which is a lot of them have grown up in a certain way. Like I think normally a politician's journey is based on what I've heard
Yeah.
is that they've got to go to the jail. That's when they. That's when
Correct.
they.
How long?
Based on,
How
yeah.
like how many years you've been in jail, or how many? Like,
Based on what I've heard, not my own personal statement.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the whispers.
Yeah.
How many times or how long you've been in jail, and what was your like the biggest
Yes.
so-called like a crime at that
Yes,
time, and
yes.
how did you overcome things like that?
Yes,
Like
yes.
traditionally, that's how it's been.
Yes, traditionally.
Yeah.
But I think we're actually seeing a lot of shift around what can this MP deliver me. I think that's very important because the reality is, as the voter, you are the ones voting in for a person, and you should see it as a job selection, which is rather than which party is this person from. you should probably think about who can deliver the best outcome for me, which is the economics, which is making a safe environment. And I think those are things that's changing in Nepal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's multiple factors that people just can't control on that front. But I'm very confident that Nepal is going through a positive direction.
Yeah.
Yes, people, there's a lot of frustrations, but in any government, even if you look at America to Australia, there's people always have frustrations with the government. But it's the ability to continue progress and deliver,
Yeah.
good things, which is the
And
most
even
important.
from our last election, we have seen the massive change, the way young leaders like elected and they won the election. It was great to see. I don't know whether you're familiar or not, like Balendra Saha
Yeah.
Balen.
Yeah.
He's doing great and he's the one true example, like youth. And then he had the vision and plan how I'm going to succeed. And no one believed on him. Everyone kind of laughing at him, like, you're a young kid. How are you
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
win against the massive name he
Yes,
had, who's
yes.
been mayor of Kathmandu
Yes,
for
yeah,
a very
yeah,
long
yeah,
time?
yeah.
And who was the example? And
Yeah.
he won.
Yeah.
And even my dad, because he was here at the time of election, and he was like, I wanted to go back to Nepal, and he could not.
Yeah, yeah,
And he
yeah.
was like, there's no way Balin going to win.
Yeah.
But then he did. So that's the one example which you just said,
Yeah.
that things are changing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it will generally change because the beauty is that so many youths are going abroad and seeing what good governments would look like, what good countries would look
Correct,
like,
correct.
and they're echoing that back to their parents and their family
Yeah.
members. But the other thing that I also want to share is that the business environment seems to be changing as well, where a lot of people who have great ideas are able to build up companies and slowly export. I think we see a lot of great things around outsourcing, but also in different industries as well.
Yeah.
I think one of the people that I'm inspired by in Nepal was the Himalayan Java.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because when I spoke with the founder, one of the things that he shared was that I think back in the 1990s, this is what I recall of him sharing from Gagan Pradhan, is that he shared that initially he had the concept of the coffee shop back in the 90s when coffee wasn't popular. And I think he said that his dad cried or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Because really, coffee wasn't normally
Yeah,
be
no
doing
one
that.
knew it's
But now
coffee.
it's like transformed into people having so much coffee. I think
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
it's like the McDonald's of Nepal, where
Correct, correct.
where that's the place to go.
Yeah.
And I think he's also trying to. He has plans to expand to Australia, and I think
Great.
a lot of companies are thinking beyond just Nepal as well, which I think just shows the focus on Nepal business entrepreneurs thinking beyond just Nepal and trying to thrive. I think you Didi and Dai have done a great job with also bringing Gold Star to Australia as well. I think that was
Yeah.
one of the. I think it might be one of the first few companies that really came to
Correct,
Australia.
correct, yeah.
And such a great brand in terms of the fact that it's quality shoes. Just at very good affordable prices as well. I think
Yeah.
if we can do more around supporting Nepal businesses to come to Australia, that's something that would definitely help out the country,
Yeah.
but also help a lot of the entrepreneurs create business opportunities for themselves as well. I know, like for myself, I'm also speaking with a couple of companies and bringing them to Australia just because I loved some of the solutions that they provided, which I think it can compete against some of the local
Oh, wow.
solutions as well from a tech point of view. But also recently, with one of my cousins, Udib, he does the hair transplant called Healthy Choice.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
So he,
What is his full name?
Udip
Udit
Shrestha.
Shrestha, and the husband of Achal,
Yes.
like a great
yeah.
actress.
Yeah, I think everyone
Achal
says
Sharma. Yeah,
husband
yeah.
of- yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
you know what? My husband, he's the great fan of Achal Sharma.
Okay, yes.
Always been.
Yeah, yeah.
And if any actress, he's like, I have a dream one day. I'm gonna call Achal in my
Okay.
podcast
Yes,
here.
yes.
And
Well,
he
we gotta
has-
make it happen. We gotta make it happen.
yeah, and then he's like, he has already chosen the gift. What's gonna he? He's like, that's gonna suit to Achal. I'm like,
Okay.
hey,
Yeah, yeah.
can you give that to me? He was like,
Yeah, yeah.
he's a big,
Oh my God.
biggest admirer. He
Yeah,
loves
yeah, yeah,
Achal. And I hope that's going to happen one day because it's his dream.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. And she's such a lovely person as well. She's a very
She is.
humble, very lovely person.
Yeah.
Sometimes different to the media. I think media always portrays
Oh
a
no,
bit
it
different.
portrays
Yeah.
quite differently. PJ was talking about Rani Di. She's a
Okay.
wellness coach. So when
Yes.
she came, I did mention there was a one particular incident happened where Achal was bullied a lot because he commented something on social media,
Okay. Yes,
which
yes.
was out of the we're humans and
Yeah,
slip
yeah.
of tongue, or maybe that was not the
Yes.
intention,
Yeah, yeah.
or she was brutally bullied. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God. And I was talking about like she's also a human being.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not doing any favor by bullying her
Yep.
in social media. And we did talk a lot about that. So I think she's one of the finest, greatest
Yeah.
actress from Nepal.
Okay.
And then her husband is doing really good
Yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah. So I think me and him, one of the things we're talking about is uplifting the medical tourism industry in Nepal.
Yeah.
Because when you look at Nepal, like I think a lot of people think about Nepal as an agricultural hub. I think sometimes a tourist hub.
Yeah,
And then
that's the
yeah,
traditionally been.
yes.
So I think we need to change that pattern
Yeah.
as well.
And so I think what he's trying to do is he's learned the lessons from like other countries like Turkey and
Yeah.
thought, okay, well, why not build up a medical industry in Nepal? So he's building up a whole hospital to focus on cosmetic surgery back in Nepal. And I think based on the hair transplant cost, like I think it's like 10 grand from Australia.
Yeah.
Like I think a couple of my friends have paid that much just for these small treatments.
Correct.
But in Nepal, it can be as little as like, maybe 2.5K based on
Correct.
how big it is. But that also creates a tourism for Nepal in terms of more money being spent there and obviously helping the businesses there as well.
100%. And I think we all, whoever in overseas, not in Australia, in other any country, we need to promote those businesses as
Yeah.
well. Because most of the Nepalese, even my brother, I was like, he needs to have a hair transplant. And he's thinking, oh, I'm going to go to Turkey. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
why? We have
Yeah,
such
yeah.
a great, like a Udeep, he's doing such
Yes.
a great job. We should go. And also, it brings the finance back to Nepal and you
Yes.
go and meet your family.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
two-way things.
Yeah, exactly.
So go and visit family. You
Yeah.
can have a holiday with the family
Yeah.
and get it done as well.
Yeah.
And one of my friend, I recommended him to go there.
Okay.
As
Oh,
well.
I
He's
love
like,
him. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I guess like even like one business,
Yes.
and then that's how we should promote.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
one things I learned from other communities is that some of the other communities, they really focus on the community. So even if it's a business in Australia, it's
Yeah.
rather than trying to say, go to this other business, trying to figure out who within the community is doing
Correct.
that business, supporting them. Because ultimately, if you can uplift your community, then I guess the stronger the community is, then the better the community would be as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I think that's something that we should really focus on is either trying to support back in Nepal, but also here as well. I think there's a lot of great businesses in Australia, and if we
We
can
do.
support that, then
Yeah.
I think that'd be always good.
Yeah. PJ, one thing when we are talking about the businesses in Australia, what do you think the Nepalese community or Nepalese business are doing? Are they following the trend, or are they just becoming the same mini version of Nepal here? Or what do you think when you see as a like a business perspective, or even the standard of the work, the way they do it? What do you think? Are we making that impact in Australian market? Hey, yes, we have a great community Nepalese, and they are making even a small amount of effort or contribution to the Australian finance. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you probably know the answer to this. We've got some remarkable entrepreneurs,
We do.
some very inspiring people. And again, I think it goes back to the key DNA of our community members, which is really focused on being someone of the community that is a contributor. I think, like, when you look at the Australian Nepali community or just the Nepali community in Australia, like the rate of people that take the Centrelink versus other communities is like significantly very low. I think
Okay.
based on like just general sentiment. And I think naturally what I also sense from the Nepali community is that, like, to be quite frank, I think a lot of the Nepali community in Australia, they're very focused on working hard and
Yep.
inspiring. They're very aspirant, which is, once they finish their studies, trying to get the best job possible. Some of them either try to get promoted and climb up the corporate ladder, which some of them have been very successful at. Otherwise, they start their own business and they end up trying to achieve that. I mean, the reality is there's always ups and downs, there's always failures and success.
Yeah.
But I think one of the continuous things is that regardless of the setbacks, they've always pushed on and tried to achieve the best for themselves and try to grow as an individual. I think that's something that a lot of the Australian community really respects. And they always do it in the most positive, happy,
Yeah.
smile way possible. I think what was actually really interesting is I had a meeting with the Australian ambassador in Nepal, and we're talking about just the Nepali community in Australia versus the Nepali, the people, I guess, the people in Nepal. And one of the things that came up was like, it's interesting because in Nepal it's very slow, but then in Australia everyone works so hard. Like
Yeah.
they're
So
very
what
fast. Like
makes a
yeah, some of
difference?
them work like two jobs. Things are very done on time. Yeah, and I think that was one of the most interesting contrasts is seeing the difference of. I guess the experience in Nepal where
Yeah.
you go to a restaurant and everything's a bit slow compared to in Australia where everyone's on the go working very hard. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I think that's why a lot of families also want their kids to go overseas because when they go overseas they get to see how things are done.
Yeah.
They get to learn a lot. And I guess in Nepal, I guess because of the cultural element that you've shared, which is, I think even if you come from like a mid-level family, a lot of your chores are done for you. You do get kind of spot like a little king or a little queen.
100%.
And when they come to Australia, it is a very culture shock because in Australia, it doesn't matter who you are. You always respect each other. Everyone's equal, and you've also got to do your chores and do all the basic, which I
Yeah.
think is all very important in life.
Yeah. The biggest shock I had when I first came here, in Nepal, we used to call our teachers with the sir and
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes, yes.
And then here, I had one doctor. His name is Dr. Chris, and he was my professional lecturer. And everyone is calling him with his name.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you do that back in Nepal,
yeah.
you get a smack
Yeah, yeah.
from your parents
yeah.
to start with,
Yeah, okay,
and
yeah.
then maybe from the lecturer
Yes,
as well.
Yeah.
That was the biggest cultural shock for
Yeah,
me. And also having like everything to do on your own. Like in Nepal, mom used to cook dinner and lunch
Yes.
and breakfast and everything.
Yeah.
And someone will come and do your laundry, house cleaning, everything. But then here, you need to do everything on your own.
Yeah.
And then somehow we were not prepared. But then, hey, within like couple of weeks' time, you will learn that you're like, hey, I've decided to come here and I need to do it. And then that's the resilience or the hardworking
Well, I mean, I
quality
think
we have.
some people may not like it, but I think it is a form of empowerment
Yeah,
because
100%.
you're accountable for everything.
Self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then within a year or so, you try, like, you finish your study, you
Yes.
get like a nice job, at least
Yes.
try to get a nice
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
And then financially, you're independent. And that makes a big impact on yourself.
Yep.
Wow, I'm doing something.
Yes.
So yeah, that's some kind of positive things being overseas, knowing yourself and
Yep.
working on your own,
Yeah.
rather than having your mom and dad telling you, "Hey, you need to do this and that all the time."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of the journey of the transformation people experience when they come to Australia is that, generally in Nepal, the general census, obviously everyone's very different, but the general census is they follow their elders. They ended up just setting their life based on that.
Yeah.
Whereas in Australia, you have that space to really discover yourself. And I
Correct.
think that's very empowering. Yes, sometimes it might be, a bit harder work, more challenges.
100%.
I'm sure, moments that people, cry because it gets very tough. But ultimately, once you end up overcoming that, you do find that nice space of who you are as a person. And I think that's something that Australia has been really great at is
Yeah.
allowing people to discover who they are,
Yeah.
not having that strong societal pressure. But also the reality is like in Australia, like I think sometimes even the cleaners make more money than
They do?
the professional jobs. And I think there's this saying back in school is the fact that people that work in the tradies job, which often aren't looked very well upon in Nepal, they actually make a lot more money than people that go to university and work in the
Correct.
corporate.
Yeah.
Because in Australia, the tradies, they're just worth more. And I think
100%.
it's a space where people can kind of do any job they want, be treated as an equal and be just, I guess, respected. I think that's something that's very important
Yeah.
any society.
Yeah. And I think that's something we need to learn as well and take something back to our community or country, having that respect as being a human being rather than, labeling them as a, hey, you're certain kind of worker or even a tradie. The way we see back in Nepal is different than where we see tradie
Yep.
or trademans differently here. So that's something we need to learn as well, being
Yeah.
respectful for who
Yeah.
are they, not judging. Which is, again, as you said, it's progressing and everyone is, taking that in a different way. Another thing I remember when I first came here and we went to uni, the education system here and back in Nepal, it's
Yes.
like completely different.
Yeah, yeah.
We have never done like our assignment in computer, our
Okay.
laptop, and here you have a library and you need to go and find your resources.
Yes.
Whether back in Nepal, like everything was, you have one lecturer will come and based on one like book or even like few notes, you have to do the study whole year, and then 3 hours that exam will decide whether you're capable or not. But then the education system here is completely different.
Yes, yes.
So that's something we get to chance to flourish. Oh, it's easy. What we have done in Nepal, it was really tough. You
Yes,
do
it
whole
is.
year of study, PJ,
Yeah.
and you sit for 3 hours exam, and that's it.
Yeah.
That will decide whether you're pass or fail, whether you're talented or not.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you have like every month or every weekly, there's like a quiz
Yeah.
or presentation or assignment, and by the exam, you almost pass your subject.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, that's something I wish we can take back to our community as well.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think, from a professional point of view, I think in Nepal they focus a lot on getting the degrees, whereas in Australia it's more about your experience, and
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
really care about if you have a PhD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how to make yourself
Which I think
skilled.
you're a fan of.
Yeah. Yeah, rather than making yourself, degree. It's always been in Nepali community. I don't know, it's a tradition, the way
Yes.
we have brought up.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's more of like how much degree you have, whether you
Yeah.
have done masters in something or not, rather than focusing in skilled.
Yeah.
Like what is skill, what technique you have or what you have learned.
Yeah.
Which you
And I
can
think,
actually,
when you look at the biggest corporates, I guess that's the direction they're heading towards, is reducing the focus on degrees and really focusing on the potential. Because I'm sure, like, probably 95% people agree, what you studied at university, probably like 50% you'd never use. And by the time, like, half of it also gets outdated.
Yeah.
But if you can build up the key skill sets, like problem solving, like things around soft skills in terms of interacting with people, those are things that you can be diverse with, where you can implement in new jobs. A lot of, the most innovative companies are saying the fact that half the jobs that we have now aren't going to even exist, where there'll be new jobs being created.
Yeah.
And I think, like a lot of companies are realizing that for someone to go to university for that amount of time and for the company to, again, retrain them, like, is that the best resource being deployed by all stakeholders? And for a lot of companies, they're thinking at the very minimum, even things around like a short workshop
Yeah.
for them to get upskilled in their key job, that's more than proficient enough
Yeah.
for them, to move forward.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of
Because
workforce.
I'm sure even like in your field, Aditi, in the nursing, like probably like once you learn what to do, maybe like probably for a month or so.
Yeah.
Again, there's probably technical elements
yeah.
from the nursing point of view, but like a lot of it becomes very repetitive, and you don't really need that vast amount of years
No.
just wasted that you could have just
Yeah, yeah. It's like always changing, and especially in nursing and or any medical field, it's like you're experiencing different changes or different procedure and policies every time, and you go and follow and make yourself constantly having that training, things like rather than
Yep.
being in traditionally same way
Yes.
pattern.
Yep.
Yeah. The other day I had, because we were talking about the work schedule time
Yes, yeah,
here and
yeah,
back in Nepal, how it works. I had Mr. Binod Kumar. I don't know whether you know
Yes,
him.
yes, yes. Very good guy. Very good
Yeah,
guy.
yeah. So what he has done is he has started Extra Tech as
Yes.
the agency.
Yep.
They do train people, and it has become a huge thing at the
Yep.
moment. He's doing really good to provide a job opportunities to the Nepalese youth
Yeah.
who has the degree from Nepal. When
Yes.
we are talking about the
Yes.
degree. but then they don't have a correct, as we are talking at the beginning, how to make the resume strong, how to present. He's doing really great.
Yeah.
So he was in the podcast, and we were talking the way work schedule we have in Nepal, PJ, like one schedule, 9 to 5 p.m. and that's it, and that's the end, and that's the traditionally how it's been.
Yep.
But then he's building one. It's almost like international standard level cricket ground in Nepal.
Yeah.
It's in Bhairava. I
Sure.
don't know whether you are aware or
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So it's an international stadium, and he's doing really good. So what he said is, I was like, how did you started this concept, and how, because working only 9 to 5 or only that 8 hours or 9 hour schedule will not be enough time. It's going to take 2 years or 3 years to build one international level of cricket ground. And he said one very interesting thing. He's like, he has taken the exact same work pattern from Australia. You can have a morning shift, afternoon shift, and night shift. And the people who does morning will go home, rest, and come back for night duty. So that has benefited for the workers.
Yeah.
They're able to work more if they need it, and they can earn more. And at the same time, the work is getting done early or quicker, because it takes forever even to build one house in Nepal, maybe like a 2 years time, if you are building like 2 stories or 3
Yes.
stories houses. And I was really inspired by that. Wow, if we could take that kind of technology from Australia to Nepal, even that's like one
Yep.
small example, but then having the same changes, even a small amount from here, what we have learned, what works better in Australia, what we haven't done in Nepal. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. You know, when you look at the neighboring countries,
Yeah.
whether it's because during my time in Nepal, I had the fortune of going to India, Hong Kong, and then Bangladesh. And when I see those countries, they're very competitive. Like they work very hard.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
very just their work ethic is remarkable. And I think that's one of the cultural nuances that we should also adopt back in Nepal is how important time is. Because, you know, for a lot of people, like they believe that you know, you've got to work hard in your early years. Time is something you don't get back.
Yeah.
You got to do it fast. And I think, you know, when you look at Nepal, it's always been a space where people have focused a lot on tourism, and maybe that's why it's a bit different. But I was very shocked about my experience, particularly in Hong Kong. Like literally, like the system was amazing. Like I just literally just walked in, everything was sorted like within seconds.
Yeah.
Like even when I ordered, like literally everything was so fast. Like within 5 minutes.
Wow,
I'll get
and
like
we are just 4 hours travel distance
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Nepal and Hong Kong.
Yeah. I mean, there's always everyone has a different culture, but we
Yeah.
can always learn from different cultures as well. And
Yep.
I think Hong Kong was like a shocker for me because of
Wow.
the work ethic and just how fast things get done. And I think the reason that's important is that, you know, a lot of people in Nepal or anywhere, just when things are slow, is that they get very frustrated. You know, they waste their time. They could be out, you know, enjoying time with their family. But if the systems and processes within a country aren't fast, then
Yeah.
obviously that's wasted time that they could have done in other places.
Yeah.
I think, you know, when you look at all the countries that are doing well very economically, they've got very transparent systems where like people get treated equally. But they're also fast and they're really focused on customer service. You know, when you look at even the recent thing around New South Wales government introducing the Service New South Wales app.
Yeah.
Like before, you know, you had to go through the line. There was a lot of
Correct.
process. Now everything can just be done online.
Yeah.
You get your ID card there as well. Like it just, I think that's what the government's role should be, is figuring out how to ensure the citizens' life
Yeah.
is easier, quicker, and ultimately
Even having your digital license, you don't need to carry wallet just in case if you
Yes.
forgot. Your
Yeah,
life
yeah.
is convenience. You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that something in your mobile.
Yeah, 100%.
So even like the small changes, I was really impressed. Wow, we don't think it, but then it makes a big difference when you
Yes.
think. I mean, making general public's life easier, convenience should be the priority.
Yeah.
And then to start with this, learn from the neighbor country, as you
Yeah.
said, Hong Kong.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we are not even that far in terms of
Yeah.
distance from Nepal.
Yeah.
We should have learned, or at least we should start learning
Yeah.
and implementing those things which are working better for other countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I think, as I said, the country is going on a journey in terms of where it's at to improving. I think it's slowly getting there. I guess the second item that might be worth raising, if especially for international students, but also a lot of because I think a lot of the viewers are young people in general.
Yeah, yeah,
And the biggest thing that comes up a lot is just around the mental health, which
yeah,
is in a society where there's a strong focus on looking at social media and trying to compare their lives with what they see.
yeah, yeah,
It obviously destroys a lot of self-esteem. It
yeah,
questions what are they doing with their life. My only word of wisdom on that is that ultimately you should just focus on you, what you can control, but also have a goal that is unrealistic that you can strive towards.
yeah.
There's been, when I look at what's helped me the most is setting goals that have been impossible at that time. For example, when I was at university,
Yeah.
I had a goal of achieving $100,000 on my first year, and obviously that was a very hard goal
Yeah.
for the marks that I had and the university that I went to.
Yeah.
But I thought, like if I'm a person that is able to achieve their goals, then that's something that is quite important to me. So I literally just wrote it down because I think that's what Harvard University said
Yeah.
has actually achieved their goals. And then my first year, I didn't achieve it, but then in the next year, like I took a sacrifice saying, look, the first year I didn't achieve the goal that I wanted to achieve. If I'm really serious about this, because my employer, they tried to previously structure in a way where I was almost there, but then it technically wasn't. So I thought, you know what, if I'm a person of integrity, I'm going to go out and just make it happen.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I left that role and then I ended up going for this chase of achieving the goal that I set out for my first year. And there was a lot of struggles. Like some of the most respected people in the industry that I was in said, you can't achieve it because you don't have enough experience.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, no, I'm going to make it happen. And then eventually I did ended up getting a role for the amount that I set out. Like actually it was a bit more than what I initially set out for, but I was able to achieve it. And I think the lessons learned that I would love to share with others is that if you just have this particular goal, regardless of how incruciating the experience is, eventually you can only go so low
Yeah.
until you go high.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe in yourself, then no one's really gonna
Yeah.
believe in you. So that's probably something that I'd like to impart because
Yeah.
that's a biggest thing that comes up for a lot of international students, but also youths back in Nepal as well.
Yeah, yeah. I had Rani Didi in my podcast. He does a lot of work for Nepalese community, especially with the youths. She does a lot of work to help with their mental health issues, which been the biggest challenge as per her experience, because she had seen so many youths from. She has done a lot of work with the different hospitals, but now she wants to retire from hospital day-to-day work and focus on more of mental health for Nepalese youth. And she did said, and which hit me really hard. She said, Sajana, from the outside perspective, it does not look that bad, but the amount of young bhai baini or the sisters from Nepal has reached out to her. It's looking really scary. The mental health of our youths who are currently here or even in Nepal, the way they are suffering. So like I really wanted to do something, and I'm like, I'm happy to be part of your journey. How can I support you? And she said that the depression in here amongst the Nepalese youths, and then suicidal ideation they go through is huge. And I'm like, so what are we going to do? And she was like, I have started, but it's not enough. One person is not enough. And it's not always going there and supporting them financially or even with other anything, rather than providing them counseling and then working on their thought process, how you should take your life at the time, rather than being, as you said, making unachievable goals and then working, but then work on yourself and do not compare it to others.
Yeah.
Because once you start doing that, that's where the downfall happens.
Yeah. Well, it's a snowball. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the reality is mental health has never really been really taught in
And
Nepal.
especially in our
Yeah.
community, PJ,
Yeah.
I can tell it's never been a talk. It never been an issue.
Yeah.
They never, she's just silly. or he's just silly, he's just
yeah.
young and dumb.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. But they don't really focus on it.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start talking, as you said, do not compare yourself and start working on your and know your value. And I believe so many people do look up to you and they're like, oh, okay. So do you really want to share some of your experience, as you just said? What should be the things that the young people who are here, they're early, like 20s, 90s,
Yeah.
under that age, what are the things they should focus?
Yeah, I mean, look, especially when I was in Nepal, I think there was a strong focus on this comparing yourself with others, because literally, I think that culturally that's what seems to be
Correct.
talked
And it
about.
comes from the family background.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
your parents, they do compare you with the next house son.
Yeah, yeah.
He has done so good.
Yeah, yeah.
He's younger than you, 2 years
Yeah,
younger than
yeah,
you, and he has built a house or
Yeah,
bought a
yeah.
car or
Yeah, yeah.
bike.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's in our blood.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
how can, like, as a youngster who are here
Yeah.
and they do follow you and they do listen to you,
Yep.
what are the tips or any advice you want to give them?
Well, I mean, the first thing is literally, first of all, acknowledging all the great work you've done, which is, I'm sure everyone has done something remarkable. The second thing is just what I have found most useful is just figuring out what I want to do first. And then once I know that, then all these other noise I just block out, to be quite frank with you. I think that's probably the two things that helps. But in terms of just the last bit, what I see from others is, just give me a sec. Yeah, I think ultimately just accepting, okay, this is what someone's going to say, because there's things that you can control and you can't. I think that those are things you can control, that in the most ideal situations, like, that's like the beauty of the world, is you just bring in what you want to do, not listening. But there are going to be people that are going to share things that might hurt you, in terms of, someone saying, oh, this person's doing better than you, or, this person's doing this and this, or having a group of friends that just continue to share all these things where you feel that normal pressure.
Yeah.
What I would say is, at the end of the day, everyone is different. Just take it that in the most positive light possible, which is, what can I learn from what they say? Because you can't control if someone's trying to compare you to someone else, but what you can control is how you interpret the meaning of that. Because I think that's the biggest issue that a lot of the youths I've seen have fallen into,
Yeah.
is that because they're getting, rather themselves, it's the outside that has influenced them.
Yeah.
Then they're like, oh, like, I'm feeling anxiety now because I'm not doing as well as others. Like, this
Yeah.
person has done this, or this person has got this job, or this person's a lot further in their life, and they're so young. What I would recommend them do is focus on, first of all, controlling what they can, and then second of all, think about what is the best intention of them sharing that, or how can I take this in a positive light, and that would allow me to control something that I could influence in my life to make a positive change. Because anything beyond where you gain control, then you just become
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a very bad space.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, that something is in our blood which gonna take long time to change. For example, we get really influenced if someone says, "Hey, something like someone said something bad to me, and that's me." No, if someone said anything bad or whatever negative, it's not your
Yes,
business. It's
yeah.
that person's
Yeah, yeah.
opinion, and then, to be honest, we do have opinion and we can say
Yes,
things, but
yeah.
then that's not who you are. That's
yeah.
that person telling. And that happens a lot. I was talking with one of the sister yesterday. She randomly called me from Melbourne. She's from Nepali community. I have not met her before. And we were talking to her, and she's going through a lot of mental health at the moment. And she was like, the roommates are not there for me, and I'm alone, blah, and I'm working with her. And she was like, people are saying these things to me and that thing to me, and I'm not getting any support from especially Nepali friend, but then rather some of the Australian where she works in some shopping center, they are helping. And I'm like, if anyone says anything, that's not your business. That's not your problem. So
Well, you can't control it. Like,
yeah, you can't control to that
Yeah.
person. I think that's where we need to create a boundary.
Yeah.
Hey, it's your opinion and it's going to stay with you. I'm not going to let that harm my mental health, which we have never learned in Nepal.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
comes from the parents, it comes from the great grandparents.
Well, that's what I meant, which
Yeah.
is, there's obviously a lot of people can say stuff, but oftentimes it's the most closest to you that are often doing the comparing and doing this.
100%.
That's where it hurts the most as well, because
Correct.
obviously that they look up to the person and yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, if there was a word of advice, is one, is just focus on, first of all, what you want to do without the bias from others. Second of all, just literally focus on what you can control, but also like take it in a way where it's a positive reframe. So
Yeah.
how can you turn this into a positive? And the last thing is, this is something that a lot of successful people have done, is literally just every day thinking about what you're grateful for. This is something my friend always tells me.
And I don't think as Asian people, I can tell PJ as being Nepali, and I'm 100% Nepali.
Okay, yep.
We don't do that. Like, what are the great things we have done or I have done? We never look at our journey,
Yeah.
which I have started doing like lately, like last couple of years. Whatever I have done in my life, I'm grateful. I'm
Yeah.
so proud of
Yeah.
it. I have done it. It's my
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
Where I was 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I'm better placed than that place.
Yeah.
So I think we need to think about the great thing which we have achieved. Doesn't matter whether it's small or big.
Yeah.
That makes you stronger.
Yeah, and it just
Do you
creates such a
agree?
better day, because when you look at it, I think human nature,
Yeah.
oftentimes, regardless of how much money, career success, or whatever it is, you always want more and more and more. It's a never-ending chase, but
No.
where you can control, and oftentimes there's often a lot of anxiety with that. Whereas if you focus on the gratitude, then it becomes a lot more
Do you
enjoyable
do
as
that
well.
to yourself?
Yeah,
Like,
my friend has been enforcing that on me. So before, he used to say every day you write 3 things that you're grateful for,
oh,
and that was
wow.
based on like his mentor,
Yeah.
who I think he ended up selling the business for 50 million or something, and then he said that's something that he does. But then there's a lot of research, I think from Harvard, which said that people that are like often writing their gratitudes become more successful because they're in a more of a play state that allows
Yeah.
more creative to happen. Because when
Yeah.
you're in an anxiety state, then I think you make decisions under stress, which often aren't the best. I mean, but ultimately, it's about in like the time that you have on earth, and if you're not grateful for certain things, then it's not an enjoyable experience. It just becomes chasing until your
Chasing. Correct.
deathbed. And I
Correct.
think that's the risk that well, first of all, I think that's what Nepal does very well, is in terms of being such an enjoyable place that
Yeah.
every day is a fun day, whereas Australia, it's always a chase and chase and chase.
Yeah.
But I think what Australia can learn from Nepal is enjoying the lifestyle, and
Yeah.
I think one of the ways is to actually be grateful for the small things. I think some of the things that people can be grateful for is literally being able to come all the way to Australia, have the opportunity to make something out of themselves, being accepted to university, to getting the job that they previously thought was hard, or even just paying basic things like their rent. But for me personally, sometimes it's just being grateful for having just quality water, like things like,
Yeah.
just because in other countries you won't have the opportunity to
I
have just
know,
drinkable
and
water.
we kind of never look up small things.
Yeah.
Even like having a nice bed to sleep during
Yeah,
the
well, it's a
night.
huge thing in other places. So yeah,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that's just a good thing to do in day-to-day life. I'm going to start as well. Like
Okay.
write 3 things every
yeah,
day. What you were
because it
grateful.
changes your brain pattern to start seeing like all the wonderful things in your life, and you become more happier and more. Because I mean, to be quite frank, like whether it's your career, like you might get promoted continuously, but it doesn't really change your life per se. Like you're still
No.
gonna be spending time at work. From a financial point of view, like even if you make $1 million, $2 million, like a lot of people's life isn't gonna change. You're still gonna be eating the same food, sleeping in bed, like probably spending time with the same people.
Yeah.
Like, or whether it's in a relationship, like whatever it looks like, you're still gonna be spending time with the other person. Like, so I think you're always gonna have the ups and downs in all elements.
Yeah.
So the least you can do is enjoy what you have. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you miss out on it.
Yeah, as you said before, that's the beauty of Nepal. That the life in Nepal is, I know it sounds very laid
Yeah.
back. No one cares. They are not in rush.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter whatever financial status they have, but they're pretty chill in their
Yes.
day-to-day life.
Yes.
So that is something like nice and beauty of Nepal, I
Yes, it
guess.
is, yeah.
Yeah. rather than running and chasing one thing to
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like they often say this, there's this midlife crisis, and I think it's because people end up achieving their goals and they realize they don't know what to do, and they become in depression when they should be really happy and
Correct.
grateful and enjoy that whole journey. Because when you reflect on a lot of the amazing accomplishments you've achieved, you forget, oh man, like that was such a enjoyable experience. Like I wish I could do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice. We have done a lot of talk. Before we finish, what's your future goal? I mean, what you were thinking to do going ahead? Because you said you do plan your life and goals. So what's
Yep.
your future plan? Like where you see yourself in next 5 years? You'll be still going back and forth Nepal and Australia. You're trying to spend more time in Australia. What's your plan?
Well, I mean, to be quite frank, obviously my first priority is my daughter and then my wife. But then, from a contribution point of view, it's literally just to create 200 jobs in Nepal. I think that'll be a wonderful thing. That'll be a
Yeah,
wonderful
great.
thing. I mean, obviously it's not like very massive, but a small contribution that I can do, I think that's
100%.
something tangible.
Correct. As we said before, like one person cannot change, and it will be stupid to think even like, one day someone
Yeah.
will come and have a massive change. But then, as you said, if you are thinking 200, maybe someone else will be thinking the same, and
Yeah, yeah.
let's do together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if everyone wants to connect with me, happy to connect and explore ideas on how to contribute.
Yeah.
I mean, like I am helping more Australian companies like enter Nepal through outsourcing or just setting up the company, but also helping some of the Nepali companies come to Australia as well.
Okay.
Whether it's the Healthy Choice or some of the tech companies.
Yeah.
You're happy to explore collaborations. I mean, the main thing is if we can help Nepal with the economics of creating jobs, then I think that's good for everyone
Yeah,
in general.
great. Yeah, so if anyone, business entrepreneur or
Yeah.
whoever is, if they are listening to our podcast, definitely reach out to PJ if
Yeah.
you really want to do, even if you have a company who's running in Australia,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you want to outsource,
Yeah,
then the
'cause
person to contact.
yeah, because one of the things
Yeah.
that's happening is people that are working in corporate are saying, "Hey, our company's about to outsource.
Yeah.
Like, can you help us with this?" And then it just happens that
Yeah.
we normally can.
Great.
So yeah,
And you'll get the same quality standard work. As you said,
Yeah.
there's lots of talent in
yes,
Nepal.
yeah.
Yeah, great. And hey, PJ, I mentioned, you mentioned before about Himalayan Java coffee. I really wanted to talk something because every time whoever my friend, because I have a big circle of
Okay.
friends, they go to Nepal, and of course there is the international airport in
Yes,
Kathmandu.
yes, there is.
So they definitely go to the Himalayan Java and take one Instagram story, and
Okay.
it feels so good.
Oh, nice.
Like, hey, at least we are going there.
Yeah.
And then they always said it's the best coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wow. So that's the impact. That means Himalayan Java coffee has really doing good. That's why like people overseas, they're going there and sharing that
Yes.
story.
Yeah,
So
and
which is something really great to see.
Yeah, and we've got to convince Gagan Dai to come all the way to Sydney and set up an operations in
Yeah, he
Australia.
should. Yeah, he should. He should. And we will definitely help whichever way we could.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice to see.
Yeah.
And then, like, especially Australian, if I'll go to Nepal, if I'm sharing some stories, and I have so many friends, they are like Australian or any
Yes.
other country, they will see that as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of, giving that message. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, they actually love Nepal in Australia. Like, a lot of the politicians, whether it's, I think, Angus Taylor, who's the shadow treasurer, he's been to Nepal in his younger years. So many, like, CEOs that have either went to Nepal in the early years or do a lot of the corporate retreats in Nepal through the hiking. So they try to raise some funds for some charity and they go hiking in Nepal. So I think there's a lot of opportunities where we just, as the community, can try and support from that front. But
100%.
happy to connect with people and share ideas.
Thank you. All right, so we are almost end of our conversation, but before that, I have recently started one segment called Chito Chito Mito Mito.
Okay, yeah.
Do you understand what is Chito
Yes,
Chito
yes,
Mito
I know.
Mito? Okay. So it's a rapid fire round, so you'll not get a time to think about it. I can think an elaborate question if you don't understand, but
sure.
you have to give answer very quickly. Are you ready?
Yep.
Sure. But the questions is really simply, trust me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was your last? Okay, no. What was the last your impulse buy?
A car.
Recently? Yeah, I think all the boys. Um, and because you've been in that political space as well, so I thought I'll bring one question. Who's your favorite prime minister between Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison?
Tony Abbott. He's a good guy.
I thought you were going to say Scott.
Yeah. No, I think I've met Tony a couple of times, and what I really like about him is he's very down to earth. But even after being a prime minister, he's always continued to serve his community, and I think that takes someone of a real leader to continue to volunteer and support the community as well. And he's actually said he's open to coming to Nepal as well. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
And his physical fitness. Oh, man, how much time he gives. And being a prime minister, where he does have that time.
Yes.
Like Pradeep, he doesn't even go to gym and he's like, I'm too busy. I'm like, man, he's a prime minister. And he still goes for surfing and does the fitness, running, everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I was wrong in that. Okay. What is your go-to lazy dinner?
My go-to lazy dinner, I think it's just Chinese, probably Chinese food.
Okay, sure. What is your favorite street food in Nepal? Because you've been in Nepal for 2 years,
So like, is in like the food?
Yeah, street food.
Okay, I think it's just like similar to a lot of people, pani puri and.
Oh, do you like pani puri?
Yeah.
I should have made pani puri.
There's a nice
for you.
one in near Hotel Yak in Yeti. Yeah.
So have you actually tried pani puri from the street?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, good to know.
Thank God, like for the last 2 years, I didn't get stomach sick, so thank God. Yeah, very lucky.
Oh, very lucky, very lucky. That means you have gone to the nice place. Because one thing happens to Nepal, but I love pani puri and I love street food. That's the best part of Nepal. But then I do get diarrhea
you gotta make
sometimes.
Sure. You can't go to any.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Yeah. Sure. Very good. Since last 2 years you have spent in Nepal, so I really wanted to know which city you like the most in Nepal.
Which city?
Yeah.
Well,
you can't say Kathmandu.
Huh?
That will not be fair for us.
Like one of the places we've always said we wanted to go to is Pokhara, and I have gone to Pokhara, but for the last 2 years, literally for some reason, it never worked out for us to go to Pokhara. But maybe Bhaktapur is that a city? There was a nice hotel there, so.
Oh yeah, only because of hotels.
Yeah, because the only place I went to is either Chittagong or Kathmandu. Yeah.
So you have been to Pokhara now, or you haven't?
No, last time for the 2 years I haven't, but before then I was in Pokhara and it was so beautiful.
I love Pokhara. Yeah. It's such a beautiful city. Last time I went to Nepal. And every time I go to Nepal, I try to travel and I don't stay at home and my mom gets mad at me. But we went to Manang and Mustang.
Oh, okay, yes.
You should go visit next time. It's heaven.
Yeah, it is.
Trust me, it's a heaven. That Khag Beni area.
Yeah.
Oh, God, you should go next time.
Me and my wife, we've said that since we got married and we haven't had the chance. So.
Yeah, you should go. It's an amazing place. All right. I think next one is going to be a little bit difficult for you, or you might surprise me. Because you're from Newari culture.
Yes.
Name 5 Newari food items.
Okay. Is it
Only 5 pieces. Oh my God.
Is that Yomari? Yomari included?
Yeah, of course. That's a food item.
Sukati?
Sure. Let's include Sukati as well.
I think the rest, I don't know. Like, is there like celery?
Celery is, yeah, it's part of Newari culture, but it's more of Nepalese and Newari culture comes in Nepalese.
There's a dried fish. The dried fish where.
Sidra macha.
Yeah, sidra macha. Yes. Thank you for translating. What else is there? There's like the beans, isn't there?
Beans.
Like
what?
What the chicken peas? There's a chicken pea achar. Or like
with the egg on it.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's not included. Gosh, what else is there?
One last.
I think the main one I've.
Do you know yella?
What's yella?
Oh, you don't know yella.
There's like some. I can describe the last one probably. like they put some gut wrapping and then they put like some things inside it and they deep fry it.
Oh, and they close it
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
top part
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
dhago, with the
Yes, yeah, yeah,
thread.
yeah, yeah.
Chakunas, I don't know what is
Okay.
the name called, but it's very viral at the moment in
Yes, it is.
TikTok. Everyone is
Yes,
trying
it
it.
is. It is.
But Ella is a drink.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yella. Yes, 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 yes.
Yes,
It's like that.
drink. It's like a chang.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Have you tried that?
No, I haven't. Yeah, yeah, I haven't tried
You
it.
should
Yeah.
try
Okay.
Ella when you're in
Okay.
Kathmandu.
Yeah, I'll ask my wife. She's my guide.
No, you did pretty good. Thank you. So this one is, you might need to go back to your teenagers. What craziest things you have ever did out of dare?
Out of there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm allowed to share that. Okay, I think just silly things like as because I went to a boys' school as well. It was just like boys daring each other to jump off certain buildings and just random things. So
What you did, which you thought, oh man, that was the craziest thing I did.
I probably won't be able to share it, to be honest, online.
Okay, we can edit
But I think
it.
just jumping off buildings, I think that's probably
Wow.
that's probably.
Sure. Okay, this is a bit similar to the first one, but not out of dare, okay? So what is the cringiest things you did as a youngster, like, or in life?
Okay.
What is the cringiest thing you now think of? Oh God, that was the cringe.
Okay, the cringiest thing. I think I have a lot.
All right, as a teenager, what is the cringiest thing you have done?
Well, I mean, I think the cringiest or the weirdest thing that I can recall is I remember I had a haircut and then like it had a couple of lines and someone asked me like,
What?
what's the lines matter? Because it was like a bit random lines and I said, oh, it's a map of Hurstville. So.
Oh, okay, sure.
But that was like when I was in school, so a lot has changed.
Yeah, when you're a teenager, so yeah. Who's your hero?
Who's my hero?
Yeah.
In what sense? I think that's probably.
In your general life, who do you look up to or who do you admire?
I think who I respect is generally like people that are hardworking, that are contributors, and are able to uplift people. So there's like a couple of people, whether it's things like Tony Robbins. I think regardless of people's opinions, I really like him in the sense that he is able to uplift a lot of people. He didn't come from a privileged background. He did end up working his way through that. Other people like Ray Lewis, who is a footballer, who continues to inspire many, but also things in the professional development, like Napoleon Hill and people like him, who are not only achieving success in one field but multiple fields and really focus on giving back. I think those are people that I
Oh my
really
God, that
feel
was not
inspired by.
Chito Mito
Okay,
at all,
yeah,
PJ.
okay, sorry, yeah.
But that's fine. We'll take it. Learn by watching or learn by doing?
Doing, that's definitely.
Yep. So the last one, if you could go under a procedure to erase your memories, would you?
Erase my memories.
Yep.
I mean, what's the benefit?
I don't know. Just completely erase your memories.
No. Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Oh, so that means you had a great memories in your life. So.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, would anyone erase their memories out of curiosity? Would you erase your memory?
Good question. I don't think I would like to erase my
Okay,
memories. I have lots of fun memories.
Because I mean, technically, the memories make up who you are as an individual, and
100%. If I don't have my memories, who I am. Maybe that question was not very good question. Anyway, thank you so much,
thank you so much,
for your time. It was really nice to meet you. I was thinking to invite you for a long time, but of
Yes.
course you were in Nepal.
Yeah.
So, but then really good to have you and really good to share your experience. And good luck with whatever you are doing. And I hope we can work together in near future for any project or anything. More than happy to be a part of your journey because I really admire you, the way you are doing. It's a commendable And I think we all should start thinking the way you think and try to have that small contribution from your end to give back to community.
Yep. Thank you, Didi. And thank you just for inspiring myself as well, because, it takes a lot of courage to start something, which you've done, but also it takes a lot of persistence and determination to continue to follow up. I think when people watch the podcast, they often just see the nice highlights, but there's multiple things going in the background,
Correct.
whether it's preparing for the interview, whether it's just, getting ready to all the edits as well. One of the things I really like about your podcast, Didi, personally, is the fact that, you're able to share stories of people that have done things differently.
Yeah.
And there's, whoever it is in life, there's things that we can always learn from others, and there's things that we just didn't know that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing you've been able to do very well, is able to highlight things within the community that people just didn't know, that they just didn't know.
Correct.
And I think your work is very important, because otherwise they won't have any access like this online. So just really acknowledge you for all the impact that you're making as well.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your sweet words.
That's okay.
Thank you, Pjay, for
Yep.
your time.
Thank you,
Let's
Didi.
end here, right?
Yep. Perfect.
Thank you.